All right, we're back after a week off. Man, good to see you guys again. Hopefully, y'all didn't miss too much. You know, I like doing these, but every once in a while we do miss a week or a day here and there. Try to make sure we're consistent on Monday and Wednesday nights, but every once in a while I do travel. Last week we went to SALT, which is the largest blockchain symposium in the US. And we were a sponsor there, which was cool. Kind of a who's who. I don't know if you have ever been to Jackson Hole or not. Highly recommend. If you've never been to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which is really just Jackson, Wyoming, it just happens to be like down in this like valley, and that's why they call it Jackson Hole. It is, you know, before I went, I talked to a few people and they said it's kind of like another planet. I kind of agree. It's one of the gateways to Yellowstone there, and the only way I can describe it is majestic. Like if you've never seen, I mean, if you grew up in the city like I did, like you see nature, but like majestic raw beauty is the only way I can describe Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Untouched, like just wildlife and mountains and just scenic view after scenic view. So, obviously this is summertime ish. We're close to the end of summer here. But 50s at night, 80s during the day. Couldn't have asked for better weather. Just loved every second of it and got to meet incredible people. Kind of like I said, the who's who of people in crypto. We talked to Caitlyn Long. We talked to Charles Hoskinson. We talked to Brad Garlinghouse. We talked to Stu Alderati, Carlos from Securitize. Anybody that you can think of was there in attendance. There's BNY Mellon, many large banks, institutions, anybody creating, funds, people that are running, strategies, a lot of the people that are launching ETFs with Canary Capital, 3IQ, and many, many others were all there on the ground. And so I got to chat with lots of people, come away with some interesting things that we will be bringing to market over the next 6 months here through different partnerships that will be formalized. So super cool, grateful, blessed, really excited to have that experience. It's really humbled too, just to be in the room with all the individuals there. So really enjoyed that. But I missed you guys. We didn't get to do the lives last week because I was there. So we are back. We have both lives this week. I don't think we have any interruptions here in the near future. I'm traveling at the end of this week, but we will be both Monday and Wednesday night. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions. I do have 2 super chats that I missed from last time. So, just so you guys know, if I miss them, and it's likely that I will, we just have so many great questions that come through. If I missed your super chat, please email it to us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and I will run through them at the beginning of the next live if I do miss them. So this person, we've got Money Maker Enterprises. I like the LLC. Very nice. They say, because I trade crypto, XRP, I'm afraid that if it blows up one night, that the DEX I use won't pay out, especially because the account I usually pay in XRP, not in dollars. So I'm hoping that we get a gradual rise to, let's say, $25 before exploding to 2,500, so that I can get my winnings back into my wallet. I've been using this to grow my bags. That's great. There's a lot of people that, trade. There's a couple of people that I know that arbitrage XRP and make a lot of money doing that because you're able to settle that real time between exchanges. And if there's a discrepancy, and you're picking up pennies and you got an algorithm that runs on that, you can do really, really well. Same thing with XLM. So, but you are running a risk, right? If there is, you'll know, you'll know when it's going on. when Satoshi moves his Bitcoin and when the reverse carry trade unwinds, there's going to be chaos and pandemonium. So, you know, just watch for it. Like I said, you'll know when it's happening. Hopefully you can buy back, but I do think there is going to be a pause across all markets when it happens. There'll be a liquidity crisis. And so hopefully you got a big bag that you're holding, and maybe there's a portion that you're trading on a regular basis to continue to grow your bag. Or you could just work with Digital Wealth Partners, park your XRP with us, and continue to grow your XRP without that risk, because we use an algorithmic trading strategy against the margin, against the XRP itself, to continue to aggregate XRP. And, you know, that's a really good way to kind of have your cake and eat it too. So far this quarter, we're in the green. I won't say how much, but things are looking up, which is exciting. That'll be really cool to be able to report on that. The next payout was of July, August, September, October. The next, you know, we'll be paying out the next dividend off of our hedge fund to people that are in the income fund in October, as well as, you know, giving the report on how much XRP has been aggregated here in October as well in the growth fund. So super excited about those things. And then the other super chat they had was, I was wondering about thoughts on how it goes up, when, what has to happen to make that happen, and most importantly, what exchanges will use Coin M accounts that pay in the asset, continue to pay out in the asset, or will they block it in some way? Yeah. So again, I think there's going to be a liquidity crisis. I think it's going to be very difficult to get your hands on XRP after it moves higher. You do have the Gemini card that's come out today, paying cash back in XRP. I don't know if you guys were around for it or not, but back in 21, I think it was 21, late 21, early 22, Uphold had a partnership with Global ID, and they also used MasterCard, and they paid their cash back in XRP. So that was super cool back then. You could hold whatever assets you held on Uphold and pick whatever you wanted to spend. They would convert that to cash and pay the merchant, and then pay you cash back in XRP. So to see that over there on Gemini, and they're going to reintroduce it on Uphold here, you know, in the near future, is what it's looking like. So super excited about those things. And yeah, I think it's kind of like the perfect scenario for somebody that wants to deposit their paycheck over there on either one of those platforms and then spend that money on stuff that you would buy anyway, right? Like, you still got to live your life. You still got to pay your rent, your bills, and go out to eat and, you know, do whatever you're going to do. But if you get a little XRP back, 4% on those purchases, that's pretty nice. So it's definitely something that I'll be looking at and probably participating in. You saw Brad, Garlinghouse, and also David Schwartz posting about that today. Super cool. Shout out to Gemini for making the pivot, man. They've been, anti-XRP. The Winklevoss twins making a bunch of money on Bitcoin for a long time, throwing a lot of shade when the lawsuit did come about. And, delisting. They were one of the first platforms to delist. Actually, they didn't ever list XRP before the lawsuit. They've only listed XRP after the lawsuit there on Gemini. So to see them, make the pivot, and also I think it's a marketing ploy, right? Like, if you were anti-XRP the whole time and you didn't want people to know that, this is a great way to get some XRP army people to come over to Gemini. It's obviously, causing a lot of buzz, a lot of people excited about it, and probably people holding dollars or crypto over there on Gemini that wouldn't have otherwise, because of the stigma or the animosity that the Winklevoss twins and Gemini had against XRP for a long, long time. So cool to see that pivot. I'm glad that, the exchanges and the tribalism seems to be subsiding, and a lot of people are coming together in crypto. I can tell you it's definitely not dying out, though. There was a lot of Bitcoin maxis that I talked to at the SALT event. I wore my XRP socks on stage. I don't know if you guys caught that or not. Some people even asked me if they paid me not to say XRP on stage. They did not. So I'll say this, you know, if you look me up on social media in any capacity, you're going to know that I have a strong affinity for XRP. It's pretty much, you know, all I talk about on a regular basis. 97% of what we manage at Digital Wealth Partners and Digital Ascension Group is XRP. And so, you know, if anybody's paying attention, they're well aware of my association. But also to that end, you also have to talk to the audience that's there, right? And I was very, very aware. You know, Brad and Stu were probably the only other people there that even think XRP is cool. Most other people there, like, this stigma that's about it in the space is still very pungent. For some reason, people are almost brainwashed, I guess, is the only way that I can put it out there that's reasonable. Just been fed FUD and nonsense for a long time. But we did have a lot of conversations about it with people that are on, you know, Solana's network and Polkadot, and then these other ecosystems outside of our echo chamber, which I always like fresh perspectives, right? I have my biases. I kind of get in my own head, and I have this, you know, tunnel vision on things. And I think I'm right. You know, I wouldn't put out things that I didn't think were right. If I couldn't argue the other direction, I won't form an opinion on it. It was just interesting to see some of the, like, talk to a guy from the Solana Foundation, and he said that XRP's network had been down more than Solana. And I was like, I don't even know what to say to you, man. Absolutely not true. The XRPL has been paused twice in the last year for, you know, 5 or 10 minutes at a maximum. Solana's been down for almost up to a day at one point. He was like, that's not true. It's only been down 4 hours in the last 2 years. And I'm like, well, I can tell you that Microsoft's threshold for outages is 3 seconds per year at a maximum. Like, that's actually 10 times as much as they want it to be. They really want it to be like 0.3 seconds per year. So enterprises are not going to adopt any network that has been down for an extended period of time at scale. And the other thing about Solana, and I'm not trying to trash Solana, Solana's done really good. There's a lot of applications, and I even told him that. I think that, you know, digital titles makes a lot of sense on Solana. NFTs makes a lot of sense on Solana. But for banks and institutions to build financial products, they need private permissioned ecosystems that are interoperable with a mainnet to be able to settle between counterparties in a trustless way. Solana doesn't have that capability. There are no private permissioned ecosystems on Solana that allow for people to transact. Now, you could argue, okay, maybe use Axelar or, you know, CCIP for Chainlink. Again, these are like band-aids. It's kind of like a layer 2 on Ethereum for Matic or Polygon to be able to settle and do all the stuff that it allows. So you need something that's native on the layer 1, that has digital identity, has credentials, has, you know, a lot of the other functionality required. The multi-purpose token that's being issued on the XRPL is perfect for stocks to be issued and build in, you know, all of the constraints that might exist within a certain type of stock. So you might have, you know, common shares or preferred shares. They might have voting rights. They may have ROFR. They might have co-sellers' rights. There might be different actions or things that you can do with the shares if you're holding a certain amount. So, and all of that's tracked with a multi-purpose token and allows you to participate in whatever ecosystem, or not ecosystem, but in whatever manner would be appropriate for the stock that's been issued, right? You're not capable of that on other chains. They don't have a multi-purpose token like that. I think that they've been very thoughtful about how they've put forth things. I had another conversation with a gentleman over there on Twitter, and he was actually really respectful, and I appreciated it. But if you wanted to get the best out of something, the government wouldn't develop it. They would put it out to the public in open, permissioned, or not permissioned ecosystem. They would let it run wild. They would see all the iterations. They would see all the problems. And then they would take the best of those things and put it in their private permissioned ecosystem that allowed for interoperability between counterparties. And I think that's exactly why they've pushed the adoption of some of these networks off over time, is because they've run these trials and tests on different things, and they've used some of those to drive certain narratives and get to the point where we have regulations and things moving in now. And you just now see these side chains on the XRPL in the last year that allow for interoperability with the mainnet, with private permissioned ecosystems. And now you have these other amendments being proposed that are passing right now that allow for digital identity and credentials and a multi-purpose token and liquidity pools and all of the other DeFi stuff that people have been enjoying on some of these other networks for a long time. Same thing with the AMM and the automated market maker. The way that they've structured that on the XRPL is exceptionally different from other market makers that exist on Solana and Ethereum. So, but you want to make it interoperable. And if most everybody understands how to code in Python and Solidity, you would build an EVM sidechain that allows those people to migrate whatever they built over to the XRPL very easily. So, again, a lot of people just look at things on the surface. They don't think 2, 3, 5, 20, 25 steps ahead, like a government or an institution or an enterprise would. These people are playing chess and most people are playing checkers. And there's nothing wrong with that. Most people aren't trained to think that far ahead. Most people live paycheck to paycheck. So, and again, not dogging anybody. Everybody's at where they're at in their life. And we're here to uplift everybody and make sure that everybody does better, right? So anyway, with that, we'll go ahead and hop into all the questions that we're going to run down tonight. I appreciate you guys taking out time on your Monday to hang out with me. If you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, share the channel if you're getting value, and we'll go ahead and hop into the questions. We got Chuck. What's up, man? He says, legend. What's up, dude? You've described the reverse carry trade many times and how it could happen by the end of year. But if it doesn't in that time frame, do you believe it's still in play in 2026, 3 to 4 digits? Thanks. Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't know how much more confident I can show you guys I am. I literally put about $20,000 on the line in a public bet that it would happen by the end of the year. I don't know why everybody's like, it's August. We've got 4 months left: September, October, November, December. Like that's a third of the year left, and everybody's losing their minds that it hasn't moved past $3 yet. And it's not going to be a gradual thing. Just like this person asked me here on the super chat, when this thing goes, it's going to be a vertical line to the upside because of the supply shock that's going to happen. There was, a chat further down on here that asked about the ETFs that I'm sure we'll get to here in a minute. One of the things I found out at Salt that I thought was very interesting, I won't name who, but one of the ETF issuers that would have had lots of conversations with the SEC for issuing ETFs because they've filed multiple S1s for multiple assets, mentioned that futures markets need to be live for at least 6 months before the SEC is going to approve the ETFs. So that makes sense for a lot of the delays that we've seen. They felt like Litecoin ETFs would probably get approved first, then Solana, and then HBAR, and then XRP later in October. I don't know that I'm super confident in that exact order and time frame, but they did say that October is when all of those futures markets would be around for 6 months, and those things would probably get passed. So if again, I haven't issued an ETF. I haven't talked to the SEC about it. This person has had numerous conversations with the SEC about it, so I'm going to take their word for it. That makes sense to me. And again, all of these futures markets, even if they were launched on Coinbase and not the CME, they count basically. And so, with that said, do we have to wait till October for the XRP ETFs? Possible. Do we, top out and then pull back and go into the bear market before they roll those? Possible. We'll see what happens here in September. But with the rate drop here in the U.S. On Polymarket looking like it's an absolute certainty, and also the Bank of Japan looking like it's going to raise interest rates, that reverse carry trade that you just mentioned there, Chuck, seems pretty likely that it's going to unwind at scale in the not too very distant future. It is an inevitability that will unwind, and it's not going to be pretty when it does. And the reason for that's just human nature. People will hold on and eke out as much as they can and then all rush to the door at the same time. The same way with a bank run. You know, people wait till the last second, or they catch wind of something, and then it just snowballs on top of itself. So it's not going to take much. I'm still watching for oil in the Middle East. If we get that spike in oil, you can bet your biscuits that the reverse carry trade is going to unwind very shortly after that, because the energy prices in Japan and the inflation that'll happen there. Thank you, babe. Wow.
No, I'm kidding. It's not.
Oh, my wonderful wife with the tea. She's here we go. The next one says, Jake, I reached out through X as far as being below XRP threshold. Just want to use your services for the live. Could you cover next steps for people they should take if they're unable to use your services? Thanks. Yeah, sure. Look, you can. So we don't discriminate at all on the estate planning side. If you got 1,000 XRP and you want to set up an LLC, sure, we'll do it. I don't recommend it. I think you would have a much higher ROI putting that money into your investments. It starts to make sense to create an LLC to manage your digital assets. North of $50,000 to $80,000, probably $50,000 if you're single, $80,000 if you're married. That's when you should probably start to think about it. It starts to make sense there. As far as custody and wealth management, we do have higher thresholds for that. So 100,000 XRP, which is close to 300 grand a day, or at least $500,000 in total portfolio value if it's XRP, Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, whatever else you have. And I know those seems like high values for people, but if you've been in crypto for a few years, I know there's a lot of new people here. I'm not dogging you, but people that have been here in dollar cost average during the bear market, you're at those prices. Like, it didn't take $50,000, saved up and invested. If you got in XRP when it was at 50 cents, you have 100,000 XRP with 50 grand worth of investment, right? And now it's appreciated. Now it's worth $300,000 in not that long, like a year, less than a year. And that'll continue through the bull market here. So if you are, at this point, you've bought in, there's going to be another big move in the market before this is all said and done. When we're starting to see the rotation, Bitcoin dominance is falling. Every time this happens, we get a big spike in altcoins. They're going to run. Do we get another leg up in Bitcoin when that happens? Does it, fall off? It's already topped and we get a rotation into the altcoins. We'll see. I do think it's going to come from the ETFs. I think you're going to see a rotation from Bitcoin into the other ETFs when they are filed, because that's what drove the liquidity and the price to move up. Even before the halving, we had an all-time high for Bitcoin, which has never happened before, but it's because of institutional inflows and capital. You've also got MicroStrategy and these treasury companies that are continuing to double down on this, even at all-time highs, with their conviction. I made a video the other day about the treasury companies and the ETFs and how those structured products could be used in your portfolio and what that looks like. So if you haven't watched that video, highly recommend. I think that there will be some other very interesting treasury companies launched in the near future, which will be great to participate in. So anyway, if you don't have that much yet, I would definitely get your assets onto a cold wallet. I would probably, set up a corporation if you're north of that threshold to be able to manage your digital assets. I would set up your bank account. We just formalized a partnership with Mercury. So anybody that establishes a bank account with us, you get a rep. They'll help you set up your bank account at Mercury so that you absolutely have a bank account associated with the LLC, which is awesome. Finally got that done, which was really cool. So we literally have everything end to end now for the $2,000 when you work with us on the LLC. And if you want to get it for the $2,000, the code is 50 off 50 OFF DAG LLC. That's 50 off DAG LLC, all capitalized. And you go to digitalfamilyoffice.io. So you get the EIN, articles of organization, registered agent, certificate of good standing, the template for the operating agreement, corporate veil, annual renewal, meeting minutes, board resolutions, segmentation of bank accounts and fiduciary services between your personal and the LLC. They make sure everything's on the up and up with our paralegal firm there at Laughlin. We have an event, speaking of Laughlin, that's going to happen November 7th through the 9th. And it's going to be exclusive for the people in the mastermind or clients of DWP. It's going to go over the Rockefeller method and how to structure your estate using trusts and insurance policies to protect and grow your assets and keep that for generations. So super excited to be speaking there and talking about digital assets and how to build that for your portfolio and your family. And again, that's going to be exclusive for people that are DWP clients and mastermind members. So excited about that here in just a few months. It's going to be a wild time for me. We got coin alts in San Francisco, and then the next week we go to Swell, and then which is in New York. Next couple days after that, we go to Miami for Futurist, and then the next couple days after that, we're back here in Dallas for the Laughlin deal. So end of October, early November is going to be a back-to-back time for me traveling. Probably won't be doing the lives that week. So hopefully, maybe we can get some more video content out for you guys. But yeah, I would get the LLC done. I would get my stuff onto a cold wallet, and I would build out my plan. I would think about, what I'm going to do with this money when it shows up, educate myself on different investment strategies, what the wealthy people do. The wealthiest people in the world don't sell assets. They borrow against them. They continue to use leverage to buy more assets and create cash flow. We've talked about boring businesses that you can buy to fund your lifestyle. Work with Ben Kelly. If you guys don't follow Ben Kelly, highly recommend. He runs Acquisition Ace, which is an academy that teaches you how to do creative acquisitions of boring businesses. So if you want to buy that car wash or that laundromat or that electrician business or that plumbing business or accounting business, things that aren't going anywhere, that are boring, that print cash, he's acquired 7 businesses in the last 3 years, works about 30 hours a week, and makes close to $1 million a year doing what he loves, which is the cash flow off his businesses. I don't know what he makes off of his group, but just the cash flow off of his businesses with him owning them in the way that he structured it with SBA loans or other creative financing, he's making $1 million a year working 30 hours a week. Like, spends a bunch of time with his kids and his wife. Is in his mid-30s. Dude's crushing it at life. So if you don't follow him, it's at Ben Kelly. This person's asked over here. I don't know if he's on TikTok or not. So we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube, we're on X, on Twitter or X. I believe it's at Ben Kelly. And you might also go look up acquisitionace.com and you could find him that way as well. We got NDK. Just a thank you, man. Appreciate you. Excited to have you here, watching the live, and hopefully we're giving you guys some value. We got insights on Gemini's credit card. Keep XRP price low. It has no effect on XRP's price. Phil says, legend. What's up, Phil? He says, where were the ETF approvals pushed back? Here it is. Were they pushed back to October in order to happen around the same time Jerome Powell raises rates and Japan raises rates and US lowers interest rates, flip the switch? I don't think so. I think that's going to happen here in September, but they were pushed back because of the 6-month moratorium for the futures market based on my conversation with other people that are in the know. We got Cole. What's up, Cole? He says, hey, Jake, I'm ready. The only thing I'm anxious about is the high regard I have of some in this space insisting I need an exit plan. Warning those who stayed in the game and lost millions, afraid to be a fool. You rock. I appreciate that, man. Thank you for the kind words. Look, I'll say this, and I say it all the time. You never go broke taking profits, but know what you're going to do with those profits. Okay. And we work with a lot of people that have significant amounts of XRP in particular. And so if you're in that group, like you've got 500,000, you've got 300,000, you've got 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million XRP, if you take some off the top, like there's still plenty there. You know what I mean? Especially if this asset grows. Like imagine having 1,000 Bitcoin back in the day and selling 100 Bitcoin at $100 and 100 Bitcoin at $500, and then 1,000 and then 5,000 and then 10,000 and then 50,000. You'd still have like 300 Bitcoin left at 100,000. You know what I mean? So if you're going to take that type of strategy, I think that makes sense for some people. Where you're going to have to deal with the tax implications. Like just know that. So if you're going to do it that way, make sure you're setting money aside, or you're doing it inside of an LLC where you can use those cash flows to do things, travel, buy, vehicles or large equipment or software, or fund life insurance policies, or, retirement accounts, other things and other ways to be able to mitigate those tax implications and keep that money. You want to earn it, you want to keep it, and you want to grow it. Okay, like those are the 3 steps. And the keep it part is not to pay taxes, because that is your largest expense by far over your lifetime in whatever jurisdiction you're in. It really doesn't matter, aside from like Dubai and the UAE, maybe Puerto Rico if you're going to live there for 6 months and a day out of the year. People do crazy things for the tax savings, and I get it. But know what the tax implications are going to be if you're going to sell, and know what you're going to use that money for. If you're going to go buy a rental property, you're going to go buy a multifamily property, you're going to go buy a boring business, you're going to go buy something else that's going to cash flow that you're going to be able to use depreciation against to be able to offset that income, and set yourself up so that you don't have to work, right? And you can spend your time on what you want to spend your time on. And again, my philosophy for financial freedom is you're making 2 times the amount of income you need each month to pay all of your bills from passive income. So if your nut to cover all your bills every month is $5,000, you're making $60,000 a year right now, and that's just enough to get by. You need to be making $10,000 a month in passive income off of something in order to be financially free. Then you're not going to be able to upgrade your lifestyle. Okay, so I want to say that there's going to be a lot of people that have lifestyle creep. They're going to quit their job and immediately go buy the Lambo and jump into some things that are going to be liabilities that you're going to have a payment on. Defer gratification if you can. 6 months, 8 months, a year after you get this money. And I know you've waited a long time for it. I know, I'm right there with you. But if you can put that off and be strategic about acquiring cash flowing assets that depreciate and grow, the equity that you have in them, they're appreciating assets that you can use depreciation off of to offset the tax on the cash flows, you're going to be in a so much better situation than if you just go splurge and buy things with that money. So hopefully that helps you. Again, you never go broke taking profits, but anybody that's just arbitrarily telling you to take this percentage, this percentage, this percentage at certain points, they really don't know what they're talking about. We work with certified financial planners. We have multiple on our team at Digital Wealth Partners. I am not a financial advisor, and I guess this is a good time for the disclosure. Not a financial advisor. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Make sure that you're advised by a financial advisor or a financial planner before making investment decisions. If it's tax, CPA, if it's legal, your attorney, I'm not that guy. But if you need those people that have those credentials, I work with all of them. We're partnered with all of them at Digital Ascension Group, and we can provide those resources for you. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think there's a lot of people out there that don't understand that this next bull run is going to be utility driven. And a lot of these assets are going to decouple from Bitcoin and the cyclical nature that has existed in the market previous. So hopefully, you know, you're able to do what's best for you and your family at the end of the day. Mark, he says, Jake, thanks for everything. I know Swift is running tests with XRP and HBAR. My gut tells me that they chose XRP, but which RWA token do you think Swift will choose to integrate between Swift and XRP? Why does Swift need an RWA token? I'm confused by your tactics, Mark. They're not tokenizing any role. They're just settling payments. So it's just going to be stable coins and fiat that move through Swift system. I think they're probably going toward R3 at this point, if I was going to guess on which one they're going to choose. And the reason I state that is Brad mentioned that he thinks within the next 5 years that RippleNet will have about 14% of Swift. If he thought that Swift was going to adopt RippleNet, he would say, you know, they're going to have all of it, right? So I think that R3 and Swift are probably going to work together. So Corda would be the network there. So if you want to talk about an RWA network, that is absolutely a functionality of Corda. I'm actually certified in business development for Corda. And so, again, that uses XRP as its primary settlement mechanism. But I also put out a video about how Swift could use HBAR for security in the messaging system, along with XRP for settlement, and Chainlink for the Oracle, to be able to pull things on-chain that were off-chain for price oracles or whatever else it needed. And I think it will be an amalgamation of stuff. You just saw SBI announced a partnership with Chainlink. And I know there's a lot of, I don't even know what you call Chainlink people. Are they link heads or linkies? I don't know what the cool lingo is for Chainlink people. But they're really proud of that Chainlink. And let me say this. The first thing I ever bought was Chainlink. Okay? Like, I get Chainlink. I know what it is. I know the products that they have. Very well educated on Chainlink. Their Oracle, the enterprise Oracle that they offer people, second to none. They are the winner. Okay? CCIP and settlement, that's very new. It's not their shtick. It's not their game. Okay, so just because a company is going to use them as a price or time series oracle for, you know, different things within smart contracts, or, you know, porting data from off-chain on-chain into that environment to facilitate transactions, does not mean they're adopting everything that they have. So when it just says Chainlink, people just assume it's a full stack of stuff. We talk to them. Like, I talk to all these people. So anyway, I think it'll be an amalgamation of those, but I do think that Corda will be involved if you want to talk about RWA. We got Ronald. What's up, Ronald? He says, Wells Fargo is closing my business account because I can't produce a lease agreement through Wyoming's LLC. Do you know or have a bank we can join without issues with the LLC? We sure do, Ron. We just partnered with Mercury Bank, and we'll get you an account set up there. All you got to do is email support@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and we'll get you the contact there and get you going. And so for anybody that's set up an LLC with us in the past, if you're watching and you do need a bank account, or you just want another bank account for your LLC, reach out. Email support@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and we'll get you that contact and that link. And they will help you establish an account there. Mercury is an online bank. They use Financial Choice, but the UI and like the experience for Mercury, the ability to send wires, they don't charge you for wires. They're fantastic. I cannot speak more highly of Mercury. You would like to have a personal relationship with a banker. I will say that. So it's good for an online bank. You probably also want a credit union. If you are military or ex-military or have somebody from the military in your family, Navy Federal, awesome. Go check them out, especially for businesses. They do great credit there at Navy Federal. Other one, any of the large banks, you said Wells Fargo. We haven't had a whole lot of success with like Chase or Bank of America or Wells Fargo. Capital One's been pretty good. I will say that. We've had a lot of people that have had success with Capital One as a larger bank that has multiple locations across the US, setting up an account and being able to buy crypto through that. So maybe, you know, kind of, again, having 3 business accounts, one with a credit union, one with an online bank, and one with a physical bank, I think is a great way to go about it. We got Shooter McGavin. I mean, 6-shooter. I don't know if you guys watched the new Happy Gilmore, but it was pretty good. Can you give an update on the catalyst and still bullish for 100 by the end of the year? What does XRP's price need to be used out of the gate range? It's got to be 50 to 100 bucks just to be used for there to be enough liquidity in it. 6-shooter. And that's why we need the supply shock. And it's not going to be a, hey, you use it, it drives it to this price. It's going to be, oh crap, we need this, and everybody runs for it at one time. That's the other reason I think they've put off the ETFs as long as they have, is there needs to be a flood of demand that comes to the market to drive XRP's price to the level where it can be used. And then once it has enough liquidity in it, now it can be used to settle some of those different markets, and it'll maintain that high price. And that's what people are going to have a hard time with. They're going to expect it to come back down. They're not going to believe the market cap that it goes to, even at 50 or 100 bucks. I got people telling me that's not possible. It's a protocol. It's not a company. And I even gave this example on stage at SALT. If you guys haven't watched that, I don't know, you wouldn't call it an interview, but that panel that I was on with other people that are building things in the space that are extremely intelligent, that work with this stuff every single day and deal with large regulated entities on a regular basis. They agreed with me because they know what's going on. But again, not your normal conversation. Most people, they want an analogy or something to look at that's the exact same as something else, and they have a hard time with those concepts. So yeah, absolutely still bullish on those values before the end of the year. But again, it's predicated on a supply shock on the asset. We got Rotcorp. What's up? He says inner peace, inner XRPs. I can't take it anymore. Going wild. What's up? What's up, Rotcorp? Appreciate you. He says, Mr. Claver, the legend. Appreciate you. I think you talked about this before, but I forgot. Are we able to add stocks from Edward Jones or Charles Schwab to our LLC? Yeah, it is a, so, and just for people that don't know that might be new here, when we set this LLC up, it's not a trading LLC. It's not, there's an NICS code for crypto trading. This is not that, okay? You're going to be able to take advantage of long-term capital gains. This is a holding company that manages alternative investments or regular investments, or all your investments, okay? And it specializes or has specific provisions to manage crypto, okay? So with that, you know, if you're going to make more than 20 trades a year, probably need a trading LLC, especially if you're trading Forex. If you're trading stocks and you're going to make a bunch of trades, probably want a trading LLC, okay? But if you're going to be a buy and hold type person, you're making less than 20 trades or 20 moves a year, this is a fantastic vehicle for you to use to be able to mitigate taxes and manage your assets, okay? So yeah, you could absolutely hold your stock account with your LLC there. We actually rolled something out today, which I thought was really cool, that we put together with Laughlin and their team. So, you know, a lot of people have their spouse and they want them on the LLC. But depending on what state you're in, you might not qualify for a qualified joint venture or QJV. I think there's like 15 states that have that exception. So that means you and your spouse can form a company together and you don't get saddled with the tax implications of a partnership. Okay. So that's why we do a single member, and it's, you know, a disregarded entity because there's no cash flows or anything in the beginning. You're just holding assets with it. When you set it up, you can put your spouse as a manager on there, but you're only going to get the creditor protection from the LLC. You're not going to get probate protection from the LLC. So what we've done is we've added a living trust option for people that want to partner with us. So if you set up the LLC with us and you want a living trust, we'll set that up for you for 400 bucks. Like, it, super cheap, super easy. What you're going to hold in a living trust is going to be your primary residence, your vacation homes, your cars, your ATVs, your boat, your toys, your family heirlooms, your gold and silver, all the stuff that you're going to want access to and to use on a regular basis, but you want to pass it to your descendants or beneficiaries with no probate. That is what a living trust is for, okay? You don't get the creditor protection with a living trust. That's what an asset protection trust is for, or there's other trusts for that, right? Okay, and we set those up, and those are more expensive. $400 gets you probate protection. But if you're marrying the creditor protection that you get from the LLC, if you're maintaining your corporate veil and doing everything appropriately there in Wyoming, because worst case, if you do it, is there's a charging order against your LLC that somebody puts against you, and maybe you're also the first lien holder on the LLC if you've done it right, and so now there's no way to get any of those assets. And maybe your living trust just happens to be on the cap table of that. So now you get the creditor protection of the LLC immediately, whereas an asset protection trust takes 2 years to season in, and you're going to get the probate protection from a living trust. So a great combination there, cheap, easy way to get that done. And so that's probably the next step for most people after they've set up the LLC. Especially if you have a spouse and children or other beneficiaries, you probably want to get a living trust set up next up. And then once your assets are close to $1 million, then we can look at the asset protection trust. Krypton says, "Hola, Jake, can you explain the math live on behind the reverse carry trade? How exactly do we get to 750 or 1K? Thanks, bro." Sure. There's only, maybe 3 billion XRP left on the market, and the demand that ensues to be able to gobble up that XRP would be a lot, right? Like a lot. And that's what drives it. So it is supply and demand. You could work it out on a graph, what you would need the inflows to be. And I don't think there's 3 billion XRP left on the market. When I talked to Simon a few years ago, and we chatted over some whiskey, he's CEO or president of Uphold. He said, maybe 5 or 6 billion was all that was left between the exchanges and retail at that time. Now, Ripple has released more XRP since then. That was 2 years ago. So have the exchanges maintained that amount? Has retail increased their bags? Sure. Let's call it all the way up to the 6 billion between the exchanges and retail. There's probably only, left for sale. Realistically, I think less than 1 billion XRP left for sale on the open market. Now, retail at certain prices is obviously going to come in on that. But with 8 billion is kind of the estimated inflows on the first day from JP Morgan on the XRP ETFs. If there's 1 billion, you get an 8x on the price immediately. So what would that push you to? Be 20, well, actually, 3 times 8, $25. Pretty quickly. And then if you had treasury companies and you also have demand from, other institutions or people needing it to settle certain things, and maybe they don't want to, move it onto the market. And then you also have the demand from exchanges if Tether were to go bad. That's where all of these dominoes kind of culminate to push it to 3 or 4 digits. It would be a constriction on supply. So, I'm talking about 1 billion or less. Let's say it was like 100 million and you've got 8 billion in inflows. Or maybe there's, 50 million left and there's 8 billion in inflows. Those are the situations where you're going to get crazy, crazy price spikes. You've got Dennis. It appears Bob Way popped up in the middle in a time to see his subnets work. Patent increase Ripple TPS. Nobody else can use because of the patent. Have you heard of it? It's very interesting that you mentioned this. So Matt Hamilton kind of dogged me the other day because I missed one word. Look, I make mistakes just like everybody else. Okay, I'm not perfect. I'm just a guy. I'm not AI. You can see my hands. I'm just a guy, and sometimes I misstep. I put XRP instead of Ripple in one of my tweets, and he lost his mind on my tweet and called me a scammer. And I've only ever been nice to Matt. I've always been respectful. He is extremely intelligent. He's kind of a dick sometimes, but I've always overlooked that and just been like, hey, I appreciate your, intellect and your ability to, answer questions. And I actually asked him this exact question probably a year ago. He was dogging somebody else about the TPS on the network, and I said, hey, Matt, I'd said something about Cobalt, and he jumped in and was his usual dickish self and was like, Cobalt doesn't exist. They're not da-da-da. And I was like, all right, Cobalt doesn't exist. What would have to happen for XRP to scale to the TPS that's required to be able to settle Visa or MasterCard? And he said, well, you would need an implicit or explicit subnet on the XRPL in order to be able to scale to, and if it had that, you could scale infinitely. So for you to tell me Bob Way just happens to have the patent on subnets on the XRPL, pretty interesting that would just now be surfacing, because that is exactly what would be required for XRP and the XRPL to scale to the level of TPS that's required to be able to settle MasterCard and Visa and American Express and all of these other payment networks that settle, 30,000+ TPS or trades per second, transactions per second. So it's interesting that old Bob Way is the holder of those patents. I know Bob's been waiting a long time for his Ripple stock to pay out. Bob's gone through some hard stuff over the last couple of years. I'm really glad to see that he made it out of that and is still kicking. I met him and his son a couple years ago at XRP Vegas, and I've had multiple interactions with Bob since then. He's good people. I like Bob. We got Rob. What's up, Rob? He says, Jake, like the gopher that everybody keeps posting in the Mastermind. Haven't even talked about the Mastermind. Rob is a moderator there. Appreciate you, Rob, for all that you do. If you guys want to check it out, if you want to check out the Mastermind, here's the code right up here. It's Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO. Get you your first month for $2. Either social or carbon one, doesn't matter which one. Pay $2 and check it out. If it's for you, then awesome. We would love to have you. If it's not for you, you can cancel anytime. It's month to month. There's no subscription or commitment or contract or any of that. But we have like 6,100 people there in the Mastermind that all have a significant allocation, whatever that means for them, to digital assets. We have people that are family offices and multimillionaires and people that are close to being billionaires. They're in the Mastermind, lurking in the background. They don't say much, but they're there, and I know them. And then we have other people that are just getting started, right? They have a lot of people that just got into crypto in the last couple months here. So it doesn't matter where you are. We meet you where you are with the education that we provide there, financial education, business resources, private deals. We have a ton of other benefits there in the Mastermind as well. If you want to borrow against your assets, we have exclusive agreements with partners for that. So on and on and on. We try to provide as much value as we can for, and we have in real life events. We have another one on September 19th here in Dallas. If you're in the Mastermind, you're going to know where that's at, and we would love to have you. Come meet and mingle and have a couple drinks and have a good time. So yeah, we'd love to see you there. But yeah, we'll see what happens with these rate cuts, Rob. I appreciate you bringing it up. And again, thank you for your service there as a moderator in the Mastermind. And again, that code right here one more time, Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you, first month for $2. He says, do you think there's any truth or relevance to the sport that the Besant, that Besant is pushing for a cut of 750 to 175 basis points? I think that they're going to have to drastically drop rates here in the U.S. The CPI, we're creeping back up. We got inflation. The jobs numbers are not good. You had Powell come out and be dovish there in Jackson Hole on Friday last week. It's pretty much guaranteed that we're going to get a cut. How big a cut is the question? And I do think it's going to have to be a big one if it's going to make any type of impact in the market. And they always cut too late. It's always, buy the rumor, sell the news. If you're waiting till the rate cut and you think the markets are going to explode after that, we're at all-time highs in valuations for the stock market right now, even more so than the dot-com boom and 1929. Just so you guys know, like, we're at all-time high valuations in the stock market. It's not going to be pretty. There's going to be a huge move to the downside when the reverse carry trade unwinds and all of these rates change. We got DFW Mike. He says, "What's up, boss man? I'm sitting by a campfire for 2 weeks in Wisconsin, unwinding, watching all of your videos. Every time I hear you talk, I'm more convinced my assets are in the right place." I mean, if you're here and you know what's going on, Mike, I think you're going to do really well. Excited for you and your family. Enjoy a beer for me up there in Wisconsin. While it's nice, the weather's probably beautiful up there right now. Probably a little brisk in the evening out by the campfire. Yeah, kudos to you. Cheers, my friend. Appreciate you. We got Houdat Canyon. Cunyon? Houdat Cunyon? I don't know. Kuyon. There you go. My wife's much better at English than I am. She says, "Evening, Jake. Curious if you've added any other cryptos to your bag. You're still holding just XRP. Thanks for all that you do." I only have one other one. It's the first thing I've bought in over 3 years other than XRP, and it's called Hash. It is, so if you guys did see Figure just announced their IPO, we also had Bullish just go public. We are in IPO season for these fintech companies. Super excited to see that finally. I know a guy that made a lot of money on Bullish. Congrats to him. Anyway, Figure is the primary company that works on provenance. They do a lot of things. I had Mike Cagney. I wanted to call him Mark for some reason. Mike Cagney here on the channel. If you guys haven't seen that one, would highly recommend. Dude's brilliant. He also did SoFi before he did Figure. So serial entrepreneur, multi-billion-dollar exits every single time, crushing it. But Hash is the token for provenance. So they are already doing collateralized debt obligations for mortgages on that chain, $750 million in mortgages each month, which is wild. And then in addition to that, it also has the most insurance tokenized on that network. So for it to be a penny or 2 pennies, whatever it is, also Figure Markets is where you can buy that. I think I have an affiliate code somewhere. I don't know what it is. I'm not worried about it. That's the only thing that I bought. I threw a couple grand at it because it's the only thing that I've seen that I'm like, okay, this is another 1000x type deal. And for it to not be listed anywhere and not have liquidity like it does, it was very similar to XDC when I bought XDC, which was 0.03 of a penny. And obviously done pretty well since then. So that's why, I bought a little Hash, HASH. You can find it on Osmosis and Figure Markets. Again, not financial advice, not telling you to go buy that. I'm buying more XRP. I threw a couple $1,000 at that, but you asked, so I'm telling you. And if you were in the mastermind, you would already know that. I'm just saying. We got Gavin. He says, "Why would XRP be allowed to be listed on Coinbase for the public if it's intended to be such a high price?" This is the last question I can't wrap my head around. Because they don't care about retail, Gavin. Most people are going to mess this up. And they know that. And I'm not saying that to be mean. You can just look at statistics. 60 to 70% of people that win the lottery go bankrupt within 3 to 5 years. Done. They're in a worse position than they were before because they don't know how to manage capital. They don't know how to invest. They buy liabilities. They run through all the money. Hundreds of millions of dollars burnt, lit on fire in 3 years. Because people don't have the financial education. They don't have the resources. They don't have the network. They don't have the professionals they need to be able to manage this appropriately. And they know that's what's going to happen to all these people. And most people are going to sell it. Most people don't care. They want the cash. And they will sell the XRP at a high price. And then the institutions will use it. And again, like I said earlier, retail might hold 2 billion XRP, maybe. Like 2% of the supply. And the other reason is they needed retail to create liquidity in the market so that they could test the asset. And look, like, there's lots of people that are like, Ripple sells XRP to fund their business. Yes, they absolutely do. That's not a bad thing, in my opinion. It is a positive feedback loop. They're able to use it to fund their business, to continue to build out the success of the network that continues to raise the value of the token that they sell to fund their business, to build out the network, to increase the value of the token. Like, that's the whole spiral, and it's a good one. It goes up. But that's why they needed retail to move liquidity into the token, so that it had enough liquidity in it to be able to trial it and test it over the last 10 years, so that they could prove that it was usable on the main net. I don't know if you've ever built software before, but you can test it. But until you push it to prod, you really don't know. And so that's what this was. They run tons of private permissioned, side chains with assets or replicas of the XRPL. But until you have a public mainnet that's actually being used and facilitating transactions and has enough liquidity to trial things, the banks aren't going to do it. They're not going to do it. So that's why they needed retail to be able to drive the price of the token up to where it is, so that they could trial it. And then now that they're ready to use it, they'll push it up. And it's really not that many people. Like, there might be 10 or 20,000 people on the planet that have enough XRP that are going to make them wealthy. And again, and I'm not saying this to be pessimistic, I love everyone. We're going to help as many people as we possibly can at Digital Wealth Partners and Digital Ascension Group, but most people are going to mess it up. And it's not for, I don't even know that it's their fault. Most people just aren't given the financial education. They don't know where to look for the resources. They don't have the connections. You got the internet, you can go find people, but I'm telling you, it's very difficult to find the right professionals that actually understand this asset class to be able to do things correctly. Because I had to find them. I had to call over 100 different firms just to whittle it down to the 15 people I worked with to set my stuff up. So anyway, there's your answer. That is exactly why they let us in. It's because they needed our liquidity to test it, and now that it's been tested, they will. Ripple don't care about retail. R3 doesn't care about retail. Enterprises and institutions do not care about retail. They haven't built anything for us. I know, because I talked to them. We're the only people that have built anything that's usable at Digital Wealth Partners as sub accounts that are segmented, siloed, separated, insured, bankruptcy remote. Like, they ain't got it. Banks ain't got it. Coinbase ain't got it. Gemini ain't got it. BitGo kind of has it. You've also got Anchorage is the only one that is focused on this type of business and worked with us to build the infrastructure that's capable of supporting clients at scale that hold digital assets and want to use them and hold them in institutional custody and do it the right way. Maybe the rest of them will get there, but I don't think they will. I was telling my team this earlier today. All of these structured products and treasury companies and ETFs and other stuff, like, that was the end game. That's what the institutions want to do. And once all this stuff is being used, I don't know how available it's going to be for people to just purchase on exchanges. I think the exchanges are going to get bought up by these large banks and institutions. And I don't know that your direct allocation to digital assets will even be possible 10 years from now, maybe even less time than that. I think all of anything that's going to be actually used at scale is going to be bought up and put in financial products and structured in a way where the institutions issue those things and you have to pay them some fee to get access to stuff. Just like the ETFs. I talked about them on, the deal the other day, the video that I put out. Even at a minimum, it's 25 basis points to get access to the ETF through BlackRock for Bitcoin. You could just buy it directly and it's a 1-to-1, like, it trades exactly even. Why would you do the ETF unless you had to, right? So that's where I think this stuff's headed. Maris says, "Hey, legend, how far till race cars and want sign up and be free? How far till race cars and want sign up and be free?" Not sure what you're asking for there, Maris. Race cars is an anagram. Is that what that is? Where it's forward and backward? I don't know. Hopefully by the end of the year. That's what I'm going to say. Hopefully we get all the things that I've been talking about for a while happen. We got now that the JPY is at 1.6 and has pushed past 1.5 4 times in the past 6 months. What's keeping the reverse carry trade from unwinding? It needs to be a spike. We need to see a spike in things. If it's gradually moving up, you're not going to get the panic that we need to ensue. It is in the danger zone. All we need is oil. I'm gonna die on that hill. Okay, we need oil. We need a spike in oil, and that's going to push her over the edge, and then things are going to happen here. We've got Textured Puma. I haven't seen you in a while. Thank you for being here. They say, hey, Jake, one thing I've never understood, if transactions are so cheap, how are AMMs and liquidity pools profitable? They're not. AMMs aren't. Okay, so right now, an AMM would be like a broker-dealer. Okay, so let's just talk about like private equity as an example. You could go out to market and buy from EquityZen or Hive or Forge or NPM, Link2, not anymore Link2. They're a broker-dealer. And what they do is they create a market for private securities. And they find a buyer and a seller and they match them, right? That is a market maker. They find two people that are willing to exchange dollars for assets and they marry those two together. And they sit in the middle and they take a fee. AMMs on blockchain just match prices. They're not taking fees. They're not meant to be a for-profit entity, which actually is great for people that are trading those markets. And the way that, well, I say that there are fees for trading in the AMM pool on the XRPL, which go back into the pool as liquidity pool tokens. So people that are providing liquidity are incentivized to do so. So it's not the pool itself making the money, it's the people providing the liquidity, which is very unusual. To your point, most of the time there's a for-profit enterprise sitting there that makes the money. Liquidity pools, I think, are going to be a bit different. Liquidity pools, I think, are going to be run like SPVs here in the US or a Reg D fund. I think that'll be the wrapper that you have to put around the liquidity pool. And I do think that they will be securities offerings. I think that there will be a way to be able to put up your asset into the liquidity pool or delegate your asset into the liquidity pool through a pseudo account on the XRPL. And with that liquidity in the pool, you will have somebody managing that liquidity pool that'll be a GP or general partner on that strategy or liquidity pool, and they will be compensated in some capacity. I do think that those will be some type of for-profit structure in a DeFi fashion. It's literally what we've done at Digital Wealth Partners. We've rehypothecated that off-chain in anticipation of that happening in that exact manner. And we've got, after this month, we'll have $250 million worth of XRP being put to work, generating returns at Digital Wealth Partners. So if that sounds cool to you, if you want your assets in institutional custody, insured, and advisor, the ability to borrow against them, the ability to participate in products and situations to be able to generate returns, if you're accredited, I have to say that, then reach out. We would love to have a conversation with you. There are some qualifications and minimums that do have to be met, but we have a lot of people generating cash on their XRP today without any DeFi risk or smart contract hacks or rug pulls or any of the other crazy stuff that's out there. This is a US-based hedge fund with full recourse and oversight by FINRA and the SEC. Okay, like I don't know how much more like higher of a standard I could have put it at, but we have it in place today, generating returns on XRP for people. So again, if you think that's cool, we would love to talk to you. You just go to digitalwealthpartners.net and go to the contact us form and reach out. And I'm sure that they would be happy to have a conversation about the products and the minimums and other stuff that we have there. Steve Madden, actually Steve Miller. He says, I'm just starting to invest in XRP. Is your net worth, if your net worth would be 1 million, what % would you invest into XRP? I'll put it to you this way, Steve. So, and I had this conversation with the family office at Salt. So I view XRP as a hedge against the reverse carry trade. So let's say you're in the stock market, you're in bonds, you're in treasuries, you're diversified with your $1 million. Maybe you got a little property, okay? It's not in your home. This is $1 million outside of the equity in your primary residence, okay? It's investment. So in order to hedge against the potential of a 50% downside on all of your assets at the same time because of the reverse carry trade, you would take about 1.5% of your net worth and put it in XRP if you thought XRP was going to go to $100. So that would be about a 33x return from here. And if you were to multiply, you know, that actually, so you'd put actually, yeah, if you did it that way, that would make up the other 50% that you lost in your net worth. That would be the way you would hedge the reverse carry trade using XRP to maintain your net worth in the event of when that happens. And when I explained it to the family office that way, they were like, that actually makes a lot of sense because it would be an uncorrelated asset that would be, you know, and if we lose 1.5% of our portfolio, like, okay, you know, it's not that we're 1.5% less rich, but if you're right, and our, you know, the rest of our portfolio drops 50%, and that were to increase 30% or 30 times, we would maintain our net worth. So anyway, that's the way I think about it. Especially if you didn't have, you know, full conviction on it, if you didn't really understand it. You know, diversification is a hedge against ignorance, is what Warren Buffett says. And I would agree with that. So if you don't know a whole lot about something, you probably don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. I'm more of a JP Morgan guy, which is put all your eggs in one basket that you know a lot about and watch that basket. But to each their own, right? Wealth creation and wealth preservation are two very different things. Work hard, play harder says, are the odds going down for XRP? No, I don't know why people are losing their minds or like losing conviction over this stuff. It's the same amount of odds. Why would I make a public bet if I didn't think it was going to happen? I could be wrong, right? Like, but I lose 20 grand. That's not fun. Nobody wants to lose $20,000. People are going to get their money back, which at the end of the day, that is what I wanted to accomplish with that bet. All the money that, you know, scams on Twitter had taken from people and all the XRP that he's taken will go back to people irrespective of the winner of the bet. But I still wouldn't have taken the bet unless I think I was going to win. Honest Aim, he says, legend. Thanks for being a pioneer in the crypto space. Hi to the tea lady. She says, hey, you're on Paul Barron's magazine cover. Am I really? Speaker on shows and meetups. What's the next step for your journey? Oh boy. I wish I could tell you, Denny. You guys are going to be excited when we launch the next chapter on this deal here. I have NDAs, so I can't spill the beans on it, but the Mastermind will be the first people to know. I can promise you that. So if you want to know, better join the Mastermind. We got Brother Bags. He says, can you say something negative about XRP? I feel like everything I hear is positive. I feel like it's an echo chamber. Don't get me wrong. I'm still buying. I could argue the other side of XRP. Ripple dumps on the market every single month. That is true. The TPS is only 1,500 as the mainnet sits right now. It cannot scale to the level that would be required for adoption. It doesn't have many of the functionalities or smart contracts required for a lot of the derivatives or other applications that we're hoping it can achieve. It's been around for 13 years and still doesn't have utility in a public setting. Like, these are all things that other people tell me that I know how to like come back at, and I have an understanding why all these things. There's in a lawsuit with the SEC. There's people that still think XRP is going to be a security. Like, these are things I hear from people, and on the surface, all this, Ripple owns, 50% of the supply. It's centralized. It was pre-mined. It's not a decentralized network. The voting rights aren't. All that's false. Ripple does own a large portion of it, and the original founders own a large portion of it. I don't care. If they're going to get super rich, I want to be super rich with them. Like, why do you care who owns it? You know what I mean? Like, if it's going to be used at scale and be adopted by the banks, like, cool. I'm glad Chris Larson and Brad are going to be trillionaires. Like, if I'm even close, if I'm a billionaire, hanging out with, I got to see Brad the other day. We actually didn't talk to Brad while he was there. I just got to see him in passing, and he's like, I don't know if you guys seen Mr. Deeds and the Butler. He's very sneaky, sir. That's Brad. I went to go talk to him. He was talking to somebody else. I didn't want to take him away from the conversation. Turned, talked to somebody else for 2 seconds, looked back. He's gone. Poof. And then he popped up somewhere else, Anyway, look, if you're going to create that much value and literally put a dent in the universe and change the whole financial system, you should be a trillionaire. What, like, you completely change the way that value is going to move for the next centuries, probably. And you don't want to be compensated for that? Get that out of here, So anyway, yeah, I can absolutely regurgitate all the FUD that's out there. And again, a lot of things on the surface don't look great if you are a freedom fighter or a decentralized junkie that wants, everything to be on a public blockchain and full visibility for everybody. It's just not how the world works. And you need private permission siloed ecosystems, but you need some way that those people can exchange value, and that is what XRP is for. And again, Liners has been nice enough to put the code here. If you guys want to set up an LLC to manage your XRP and your digital assets, you just use this code here at the bottom. It's 50 off 50 OFFDAG LLC. Just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io, and they get you everything all in end to end for $2,000. Excuse me. Then you can come to the cool webinars like the one we had today. We got Justin Kincaid. He says, do you think BlackRock buying Ripple before price appreciation? Do you see BlackRock trying to be patient, but me and Uncle Danny ain't patient. Wake up, Uncle Danny. They would have to. They would absolutely have to in order to be able to afford it. Brad put this out the other day, so just, I'm not going to say how I got this information because I can't talk about stuff publicly because we run 506Bs there in the Mastermind. But on the shareholder letter that Brad sent out the other day, he talked about potential valuations for Ripple if it were to go public. And he had two separate prices for Ripple shares on there. One was if it was valued like Circle at a 19 times revenue, would put their share price at $650 per share. And the other one was if they were valued as a treasury company, similar to MicroStrategy at a 1.8x times their treasury position, which would put them at a $1,350 share price. Currently trading on the secondary market for around $160 per share. So should be pretty good for people that own a little bit of that Ripple stock. But I say that to say that, they're getting kind of late in the game. Like BlackRock needs to pull the trigger here if they are really going to buy Ripple. And it would have to be before price appreciation. We got Jason K. He says, hey, Jake, you have some very, very aggressive price targets for XRP in 2025. You are more or less confident about price targets for 2025 after the last meeting at SALT. Now's your chance to hedge. If I wanted to hedge, I would hedge. Okay. I've already stated what it's required in order for it to go to those prices. I'm confident that those things could absolutely play out here in 2025. And if I wasn't, I wouldn't say that. Right. So You need the reverse carry trade. You need implications for Tether. You need the ETFs. You need other stable coins to be launched on the XRPL. You need exchanges to go illiquid. You need the reverse carry trade to unwind. There's a lot of things that still need to happen for XRP to get the price targets that I'm talking about. But all those are dominoes, right? Like I've laid it out in the domino theory. And as soon as Japan falls, or actually oil spikes and Japan falls, they just topple over. And that's what causes the big move to the upside here. And people are going to have a hard time comprehending how quickly it moves to the upside when it does. I don't know. Like, it's not going to be a gradual deal like Solana or these other tokens, which is what everybody wants it to be because that's what they've seen in the past. If you look at the XRP chart, that's not how it moves. It moves erratic and like exponential to the upside when it moves to the upside. Wake the fork up, says Legend. How much time do you think we have to the reverse carry trade? Is we have once reverse carry trade is obvious before the markets tank, i.e. we see rates at 1.782%, oil booms to 70, 80 plus hours, days. Come on, man. Look into the crystal ball. Hold on. I'll do it for you. Give me a second. There you go. I don't know. I'm confident that over the next 4 months here, you're going to see rates move. That's obvious at this point. The rates are going to move. When the rates move, it's going to unwind that carry. The reason they haven't moved them is because they can't. Jerome Powell knows they can't. Trump is telling him lower interest rates. He knows what's going to happen. He knows XRP is going to the top, baby. And he doesn't talk about it, but he will. Here's some predictions. You're going to hear about XRP from Trump, and you're going to hear about XRP from Elon. Both of them before the end of the year. Okay. Maybe Amazon. Now that we got Gemini. So there's things that have been behind the scenes, people dealing with stuff. Got to see old Eric Trump at SALT just a few days ago. We got Jeffrey Dahmer's Ford Ranger. Wow. It says, hey, Jake, you name your name, hold the Jacked Claver. Yeah, you know, my arms are back up. We're back up to 19 inches cold on the arms. Doing good. Happy about it. Making progress. We got, I'm not sure what this one is, just a bunch of letters put together. They say, hello, Jake, do you think that the NDAs will be revealed prior to the ETFs being approved? I think it'll all roll at one time because you need all the demand. Like, you got to be able to push it to the price they needed to push it to be able to use it. Ronald again. You already sent me a super chat earlier. Or did I get kicked back up in the chat? Just email us about the bank account, support@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and we can absolutely make sure you get that bank account there at Mercury. Vinny, he says, bottom XRP price prediction when the reverse carry trade unwinds. Not going lower than we are now. I think this is as low as we're going to go when the reverse carry trade unwinds. I think we're going to get a big move to the upside, and then it's going to fall about back to where we are now, and then rebound. I could be wrong. I'm not Nostradamus. I don't have a crystal ball. And I am just some guy on the internet, so don't listen to me. But that's my best guess. Ricky Bobby. We got Ricky Bobby in the mastermind. This is just Bobby. He says, hey, Jake, say the scenario is 5K XRP bag in Tangent. Wanted to transfer and sell 500 XRP when price is $1,000 per token for profit of 500 grand. Would you trust Kraken with this large transaction? Yeah. Talk to those guys. Talk to the co-founder and CEO. We have a good relationship with them. I really like Kraken, especially for large orders like that. Their OTC desk is great. They're fine. I've never had a problem with Kraken. Had problems with other platforms, never Kraken. I am not going to get to all the super chats. We're already close to an hour and a half in here. I'm going to hang out for 2 hours, and I'm going to try to go for the lightning round. There is a way to do just super chats. I'm going to try to figure it out. That just turned everything white. That's not what I wanted. I'm going to have to ask my guy on how to do that, because I know Zach Rector does it. I don't know how to do it. Jake, can this pleasant joint join their bet? Can this peasant join their bet too? No, I'm not making another bet with anybody else. I've already made a public bet for 20 grand with scams. I'm not betting anybody else. Sorry. That's plenty of a bet. Sue says, will $1,000 XRP price negatively affect the economy? No, the economy will boom. It'll offset the debt. There'll be instant settlement. The velocity of money will pick up. They'll be able to reduce M2 money supply. There'll be tons and tons of other things that are beneficial for economic growth and GDP with the implementation of this technology if XRP's at those prices. And that's the whole point. Like, they need to kickstart the economy and have real growth, which is not artificial or inflated by the way they just print money like they have in the past. We got BD in the house. They say, Jake, my guy, the legend. BD in the house here. Do you see the growth to say $1,000 as gradual or a reset and possible tie to the reserve asset? It seems to me it almost has to be the latter. Yeah, it's going to, like, again, the move to the upside is going to be faster than people can compartmentalize or rationalize in their mind. And I do think that it'll end up being a reserve asset. We've got the crypto couple, one of two. Oh, they got two-part. Here we go. They say, legend, I've just finished the entire Apple podcast that you put out. You, sir, are a saint for having the patience and consistency to repeat yourself. Thank you. And I really like the number here, 1589. Appreciate that on the super chat. The second one, 2 of 2, says, my question is, do you think that XRP has to be above the price of an ETF as a physiological purchase, as a psychological purchase? If they are close in price, would people just want to buy the asset instead of the ETF? So they're backed 1-to-1, but there's going to be a ratio. And I broke this down in the last video that I did about the treasury companies and the ETFs. You're still going to pay a fee on the ETF, but if it's the only way you can make an allocation of the asset because it's financial products, it's the only way you're going to be able to get it. Sorry for the people on TikTok. My phone is dead. So apologize for the people over there. I don't have my charger like I normally do. So TikTok's done for tonight. We just got X and YouTube. You guys got lucky. So it's backed 1-to-1 and there's a ratio, and psychologically you could change it up, right? So like the Bitcoin ETFs, it's way less than what an actual Bitcoin is. It's a certain number of sats per share that they structure it at, and eventually I think it'll be drops per share, same way for XRP as it scales in value over time. And the reason for that is right now it's like multiple XRP, somewhere between 2 and 50 XRP per share of these ETFs that have been announced. If the stock market does move on chain and it's fractionalized, you won't need stock splits, and it'll be much more accessible for the average person to be able to purchase 1,000th or 100th of a share, even in an ETF, than it is today. And that's the reason they do stock splits today and try to keep things in a reasonable place. When things get over $4,000 a share, it's not economical for most people to be able to purchase them. You almost get to a point where you're like Berkshire, where like you just let it get over that point. And you're like, okay, well, we only want the wealthy people anyway. Which is kind of a dick move. But, you know, like if you own a share of Berkshire Hathaway, you have at least $500,000 to allocate to their share. And then you can attend the shareholders meeting, which is kind of a cool thing. So I want something like that. I want like a shareholders meeting where people are excited to own one share or a couple shares of a company to be able to attend something like that. Probably a long time in the future before that's a thing, but you know, aspirations, set big goals. Sometimes they happen. So anyway, yeah, psychologically, I do think that people would, they want it to be a higher price, and they would probably invest in it if it was. But if you have the swap, I mean, it's not going to be economical for people too. So I think that ratio would probably change over time on the ETFs. And we got Andres.io says, legend. What's up, man? Seems like institutions continue to refrain, it's late, need more coffee instead of this tea, from discussing XRP publicly. What's your tinfoil hat say about that? With the 589 super chat. You know, I really don't know. I'm obviously open about this stuff. And I've had lots of conversations with them. But I can tell you this, like when we talked to MasterCard, I explicitly asked them about XRP and they were like, change the subject. Same thing with multiple other people. And just like visceral response on stuff, either they crack a smile and then they move on to the next thing, or they get real quiet and their eyes open and then they move on to the next thing. So I don't know. I don't know who's been paid off. I don't know what NDAs are in place. Obviously there's something though, for it to be this hush hush. And I'll say this too, like it's on a need to know basis. It's not like everybody at these banks knows about this stuff. I talked to people in the mastermind about this probably 2 weeks ago. I had the chief risk officer of a very large bank call me not too long ago. Referral from a friend. It's a bank that you would all know. He worked there for 25 years and left about 3 or 4 years ago. And calls me up in a frenzy and he says, I need to buy XRP, XLM, and HBAR. How do I do that? This dude's in his 70s. Like he's not tech savvy, never owned a crypto before in his life. And I was like, I help you do that. It's not a problem, you know? So we got him taken care of. But for him to call me and act the way that he did, he obviously caught wind from something at that bank or people that still work there that stated they were going to be using certain assets. So again, just other conversations like that. He didn't even know. He helped develop Project Ion and didn't even know what the settlement mechanism was going to be. So that's kind of the deal too. Like, I don't think there's a lot of these people that don't even think to question that part of it. They're just like, oh, this is a more efficient way for this to transact and these things will scale. And I don't know which one they're going to use, you know, where we have this private permissioned ecosystem that we're setting up that we know needs to be interoperable, but they've figured that out. So I don't need to know any more than I need to know. It's very limited, even at high levels of banks and institutions, that people would understand XRP. Another large bank that's here in Dallas. There's a lot of people that work there here in Dallas. It's an international bank. They're one of their head people knew that XRP was on their balance sheet, has seen it, not listed. It's a publicly traded company, not listed in the category you think it'd be listed in. And she was like, yeah, we hold a bunch of that, but I don't know what we're going to do with it. So even the people at the very high end of these banks, like either they know it's there and they don't know what it's going to be used for, or they like understand how the technology is going to be integrated with the financial, you know, framework within the bank, but they don't know what they're going to settle with. They've compartmentalized how that's going to work and who knows what, keeping that from being just an apparent thing at these banks. And again, this is just conversations I'm having with people that I'm able to bring to you guys. Super blessed and privileged to be able to have these conversations and like see this when most people don't have access to it. We got K Clark. They say, how will the reverse carry trade affect the stock market so I can understand how to protect those assets? Thanks for all that you do. There's a reason Warren Buffett has got almost $400 billion on the sideline right now. it's going to decimate markets. It's going to be limit down, limit down, limit down when this happens. $10 trillion that gets sucked out of markets globally across the board. Gold, bonds, treasuries, stocks, real estate, doesn't matter, all going down when this happens, because people are going to be selling as much as they can to swap back to the currency that they bought it in, to swap it back to yen to be able to repay those loans. Treasuries are going to be fine because they've already backstopped it with the Genius Act and that bill. There's going to be enough demand for domestic issuance of stable coins to be able to buy up all the treasuries that are dumped on the market by foreign entities and other individuals. So, Michael Gade, he's the CFP, sharp guy. If you guys don't follow him over there on Twitter, he's a little out there with his personality on Twitter. I've talked to him off Twitter. Super good guy. He plays a character over there. Few. Distinguished. Anyway, he has his keywords that he runs, but he has a big bet on treasuries. The dollar milkshake theory and that whole deal, it's not going to play out the way that they think it's going to. People aren't going to run for the US dollar. They're going to be running away from the US dollar and treasuries, but we're going to have enough demand here to keep it from crashing and crumbling and the economy going into a deep depression in the world. They've already figured all this stuff out. Omar says, most people don't realize blockchain can't communicate directly. XRP was built for interoperability. Why isn't this a standard feature? Is it simply too hard for others to implement? Thanks, Jake. That's why you have Wormhole. That's why you have Axelar. That's why you have CCIP for Chainlink, for cross-chain interoperability protocol. There are people that are solving this problem, right? And again, you need to be able to wrap tokens or issue assets from one network to another. Wormhole does a fantastic job of that. We've had them on here on the podcast. I can get Axelar on. I probably need to get Axelar on and talk to them. We can get Chainlink on too. I mean, we know they're lawyers and a lot of people over there as well. So I can probably get both those on and talk about that. But those are the people solving that problem. Each blockchain itself is, built for whatever it's really good at, and it should be. You want to be the same thing with people, right? If you can be in the top 1% of whatever you do, other people will come find you, and you won't have a hard time finding the other 1%ers that are in whatever you need to be able to work with them on, right? I know a lot about 3 things, and I don't know a lot about anything else. But if I need to know anything about anybody else, I can find the other people that are in the top 1% in that thing and work with them. And they probably want to work with me in some capacity because I'm good at what I do. So same thing here, right? Whatever blockchain it is, hopefully, if it is built for a specific use case, you want it to be really good at that use case. And sometimes if you're really good at one thing, you're probably not good at a whole bunch of other stuff too. You want to be a specialist, not a generalist most of the time. And so, you need other protocols that allow for interoperability between things and to fill the gaps. Overledger is another one of those. Quant, I think, is another great opportunity there. Here we go. We got this person with the super chat says, thanks for the great info. Appreciate you. Thank you for being here on a Monday night, hanging out with me. We got Brando Mont says, your opinion on no capital gains tax for crypto in the future. Trump mentioned early in term, specifically XRP. I think it'll be provisioned in specific applications. So I think it'll, if you're using it for settlement or in a business application, I think that you're going to be okay. If you're using it as a treasury asset or an investment, I don't know that you're going to get that benefit. Wayne, what's up, Wayne? He says, how big of a deal is MasterCard XRP Gemini? I sent a cool bobblehead to Dallas office to the address to where the September 19th meeting is. Hopefully it made it. I haven't been by the shop but I will go by there and find out. So I appreciate you on the bubblehead. If it's me, man, people been, you know, putting my head on all kinds of stuff there in the mastermind on the memes. That's fine. I get a kick out of it. But yeah, I mean, it's not a huge deal. Like I said, they've existed before. I think it's a marketing ploy for Gemini to be able to try to make amends with the XRP army. That's what I think it is. We got Kicks and Fits. They say, what crypto do you recommend for someone entering the market? Also, do you recommend Gemini's XRP card since I use a credit card for diesel refueling? Heck yeah. If you can hold cash over there and get 4% back in XRP, no brainer. Yeah, for sure. Or maybe you hold, you know, XRP and spend your XRP and get 4% back in XRP. I don't know. I don't know how big an XRP junkie you are. But that's, you know, again, I can't give you financial advice. You can make your own investment decisions. Hopefully I'm providing some value on here that allows you to create some context to make good decisions for you and your family. We got Victor. He says, legend. What's up, man? He says, I see an article that XRP was ranked 15th of 15 blockchain security. The article was on TradeView and the article disappeared. Can you briefly explain? Well, I'll say this. The XRPL has never been hacked. It's never been down. It's only ever been paused. It is decentralized. The governance on chain is actually really significant. You need 80% of the validators plus one to validate or make an amendment and change the network. It is upgraded almost bi-monthly to the newest version. It's extremely secure. So there's a couple other people that brought that to my attention that talked about that article, but for it to be removed, there are people that throw a lot of shade and spend money throwing shade at XRP for some reason. There's also people that talk their book, that have a huge allocation to XRP or want to buy more, and they will come out and say things about it in hopes that it drives the price down. So I don't give it much thought, to be honest with you. I know what I know. I've had enough conversations. I'm not really worried about it, Victor. Jesse, thank you for the super chat, my man. Thank you so much. He says, Jake, thanks for everything. Also, I have all things set up. I live in New Braunfels. Awesome, dude. Hope you're floating the river down there, enjoying summer. Would like to come up in person to transform XRP. Would prefer to have your group walk me through it. Don't want to make a mistake. Who should I contact at the office? We don't have any financial advisors at our office here in Dallas. We do have one in Houston. So I would, which would be a little bit closer to you anyway, than driving all the way up here to Dallas. So New Braunfels by Austin or San Antonio. It's one of the two. But Houston's closer. So Houston's probably an hour and a half away for you. I would email support at Digital Wealth Partners and ask if they could connect you with the advisor that's in Houston to help you do that. And I'm sure he would love to help you do that. And thank you for the super chat. We got S3. They say, Jake, interested in the LLC and custody. Which consult should I book? Digital Ascension Group to learn more? Team member, wealth advisor? Can you explain that a bit more? Either or. Both of them are extremely adept at all the services that we offer at that level. I would start with, I mean, the LLC is a prerequisite to custody. And they're just going to push you back that direction if you don't have that set up. So I would start with Digital Ascension Group. And our team there can explain everything in detail. They can't give you financial advice, but they can tell you everything that you need to know. Kind of like me. Like, I don't give you financial advice. You make your own choices, but I shoot you straight. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to bullshit people, excuse my French, or like kind of cut corners or hedge or like Some guy asked me if I wanted to hedge earlier. I don't want to hedge. Like, I would rather just give people the real deal and kind of let the things land where they land, and people can make their opinions about me. I'm okay with that. So anyway, I would start on the Digital Ascension Group side, and they'll be able to give you the full rundown and everything. And I look forward to working with you. We got Wayne again. We already been through that one. And this one too, so it must have kicked me back up in the chat like it likes to do toward the end of the night. I'm going to pull it all the way down to the bottom. So I'm sorry if I missed your super chat. If I did miss your super chat and you want me to answer it, there's two ways to do that. You can go and join the mastermind right up here. Join the mastermind with that code Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1 MO, get you, first month for $2. And then you can message me all you want inside Discord. If you do join the mastermind, I will not message you. It's not me. Report, block, suspend, remove, do not answer. It is a scam. It's not me. I will not message you when you join the mastermind. Just so you know, like, I don't message people, even on social media. I don't message you. I won't message you. If I ask you for WhatsApp or anything else, it is a scam. Block them, remove them, report them. Okay? We report. My wife, I love her to death. She reports probably 50 to 100 fake Jakes every single day. Okay? So watch out. Please, 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 please do not fall for these people. We do have resources if something happens. If you send your XRP somewhere, your Bitcoin or whatever else to somebody, and you do get scammed, John Wingate and his team over there at Bank Social, they can help you out. Happy to give those resources to people if something happens to you. Just reach out to our team, but just don't let it happen. I'm not going to message you. If you message me, like, you can send me a DM in Discord, I will answer you, but I'm not going to message you first. Okay? So if you get messages from me, it's not me. I didn't do it. It's somebody else, and they're trying to scam you. So just be aware of that when you do join. Josh Chapman says, hey, Jake, appreciate your content. Do you think the new Dallas Stock Exchange, BlackRock, and Citadel are opening in 2026 will lean into Ondo XRP partnership? No. Well, over the long term, yes. A little birdie told me the other day that it doesn't look like they're going to launch that tokenized, which makes my heart sad. We'll see though. Maybe they were misinformed. But actually, I think Hedera is going to be a big play for actual tokenization of stocks. XRP, well, I say that. I mean, like I talked about earlier, multi-purpose token on the XRPL is a big deal for actual stock issuance. So maybe that is where things head. And Ondo for treasuries for sure. Securitized for funds. BlackRock is already very well involved with all those. And Citadel, we're not far from where my office is, like 10 blocks from where the stock exchange is going to be here in Dallas. So anyway, super excited about that. But yeah, I do think over the long term, yes. Short term, probably not. Cade Mills, they say, thoughts on SBI partnership with Chainlink? They own 10% of Ripple and choose Chainlink CCPI protocols that won't need bridge assets. See, that's where people like just because they partnered with Chainlink doesn't mean they're using CCIP, and especially for settlement, because it sucks for that. And whatever the link people's name are, like I said, link heads or linkies or whatever you want to call them, just because they partnered with a company doesn't mean they're going to use their full suite of products. Just like when people use Ripple and they use RippleNet, do they use XRP? Not today. They use Ripple and RippleNet and potentially ODL and some of the other products that they use. But they're not settling in XRP. They might have an allocation to XRP, but they're not using it today. Same thing with Chainlink. Chainlink has a suite of products. The Oracle, time series Oracle, and the Oracle product, absolutely. It is where it's their bread and butter. That's what everybody uses. CCIP, maybe. but maybe not. I think people jump to conclusions and think that, you know, when they see a partnership and it's a publicly listed partnership, it's just everything. It's all in. It's the end game. They've lost all hope, and I don't know why that is. So anyway, yeah, it still needs a settlement mechanism, and Chainlink is not it. I can tell you right now. Leo, I got 10 more minutes here, and we're going to wrap it up tonight. We got, Leo says, Jake, is it possible that something else other than XRP gets used for all of these use cases that would drive price as high as 1K, dollars or euros, other tokens? No. There's not anything else that's 13 years old and been trialed and put together 20 plus years ago that's going to be used. Sorry. Decisions were made a long time ago on a lot of this stuff. And XRP wasn't even XRP when it was put together. It was XNS, and then it was Ripples. And then it got rebranded to XRP when there was a white paper about an exchange rate peg that was put out by the World Economic Forum in 2014. That's when they rebranded it after that. So this stuff's been like, if you could go all the way back to Ryan Fruger and OpenCoin and stuff in 2004 and even earlier than that, like if you really knew the true story of how long this has been planned out and put together, people would have a hard time. And again, I don't make these choices. I'm just a guy, been privileged and blessed to have some conversations with some people. They're not going to pivot. They're not going to change. This has been the plan for decades at this point. Jason says, loans and beyond, VA loans and beyond. Very cool, man. Since we don't have 50K in XRP, but we have a little over 12K, we have the LLC, but we have to wait until price appreciation before we can use your services. However, once that hits, is it too late? No. Happy to work with you then. And we're going to continue to scale out all of our team to be able to help people. We had a new advisor start today. We've hired 3 more people this month. I'm growing. Well, not me. My team and I are working as fast as we can to make sure that we have all the systems and people in place to be able to scale with the demand that we anticipate happening. So systems are a big deal. Those we've broken a lot of those over the time that we've already been scaling, and we've fortified a lot of that. And I'm excited about the throughput that we'll be able to have and the service level that we'll be able to have for people as we continue to see the growth in the asset. Renetta says, back a few lives ago, you mentioned wallets were wallets you prefer. Is there an online wallet which can be utilized to move assets to fund the account? Huge appreciation for all your efforts. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you being here and for the kind words. Zaman, XAMAN, is the hot wallet that I would recommend. If you were going to use one, that'd be my recommendation for XRP in particular. All right, I'm sure that I missed some super chats here. Yep, here we go. I found it. Rick Mitchell, appreciate you on the super chat. And then we got Keith Allen. Man, thank you so much for the super chat. You didn't have to do that. Do you think you and Max sit on a saddle at the $1 Million Cowboy Bar in Jackson and sip a good whiskey? Got a 1-month follow-up call with Laughlin tomorrow from LLC. Have an irrevocable family trust with assets in it. Do I need another one to move LLC? If you have an irrevocable family trust, you're okay. That is a acceptable vehicle. As your assets scale in value, possibly. So here's the other thing. Most centimillionaires and billionaires have a minimum of 7 trusts. Okay. Just depends on their estate, what assets they're holding, their investments, their long-term vision for their family. Many of them also use foundations and insurance and other things as well. These are all tools And depending on what your long-term vision is, you may want to diversify across multiple structures. And, you know, I think as assets appreciate, you're probably going to want to. For now, probably good. We did sit on the saddles there at the $1 Million Cowboy Bar. And I did have an old fashioned at the $1 Million Cowboy Bar there in Jackson. So actually some really good, like, little honky tonk stuff there. Not like Dallas. It's actually kind of a college town there in Jackson, which I thought was interesting. I just saw Dan from Pantera. I saw a lot of people have a lot of whiskeys there at the $1 Million Cowboy Bar. I held it together. I was doing better than I should have been, probably. We got this gentleman says, hey, Jake, thanks for sharing your knowledge. You're new to crypto world. I did good in real estate. Would you diversify? I'm holding some XRP. Very cool, man. Glad to see that. Look, I look at wealth like a tree. Okay. You have one vertical that's kind of the core or the trunk of your wealth that you invest all of your time and money and resources in to get to the point where it bears fruit. And when it bears fruit and your branches sped out, that's when you would diversify in order to preserve your wealth. So real estate can be that vehicle. A business can be that vehicle. People get there in many, many different ways. I think that people that are holding significant amounts of crypto will have a very similar story where they grow a giant amount of wealth in crypto and then they diversify into other areas like real estate or private equity or private credit or, you know, trade finance. There's a lot of things out there where you can put that money to work and get an uncorrelated asset class. I think that crypto is definitely, utility-driven cryptos would definitely be uncorrelated to the stock market or real estate. And I think when there is volatility in the market in the near future with the reverse carry trade unwinding, you'll be very happy that you have an allocation to some of these other assets that will be inversely correlated to your real estate holdings. We got True King. He says, have you met Brad Garlinghouse? Yeah. Do we have any NDAs? Not with Brad. I don't have any NDAs with Brad. Ripple. Can't say anything about that. You're like the XRP spokesperson. Has to be a connection. I mean, I've got pictures with Brad. He's good people. We've met him multiple times. If you're in the right rooms, you run into these people, right? Then they're normal people. They're cool. There's nothing like he wants to talk about Rock Chalk Jayhawks, you know, in Kansas City, and football. You would think, like, I mean, he'll talk about digital assets and the landscape and regulations and the lawsuit and all that stuff too, if you want to talk about that. But like, most of these people spend all their time talking about that. They don't want to talk about that. David Schwartz is a little bit different. If you get him running on the tech, he's like a kid in a candy store. He really does enjoy talking about amendments on the XRPL and, you know, what's being voted on and why it's cool and why it's different. I like talking to David about that stuff because you can see him light up and you can see the passion that he has for it. But yeah, you know, we'll be at Swell again this year. Excited for that. They have people from BlackRock and BNY and all the other large institutions there in New York this year at Swell, which will be easy for them to get to because all of them are there in New York. I think I'm going to be back up in New York in September, and then I'll be there again in November, like I talked about. So anyway, I'm not really I don't know. I guess I'm a spokesperson for XRP. I mean, I got the shirt on, right? This is actually from XRP Cafe. I got this. I didn't get to see Vet. He didn't come to Vegas last year in 2024 for Rare Evo. They had the only XRP booth at Rare Evo. XRP Cafe did, and that's where I got this shirt. So anyway, yeah, I don't have any NDAs with Brad. And that's all I'll say. We got this person says, can you speak on the lawsuit between settled? Love the info you provide. Discrepancy there, and it's been settled out of court. So yeah. We got Larry. He says, can your team set up an offshore asset protection plan with a virtual family office, or is it all US based? Which bank would hold the assets? Salute to us, the new elite. I like that, Larry. Yeah, we can do offshore protection trust. Just depends on where you want to go. So we could do Nevis, we can do Caymans, we can do Bermuda, we can do Cook Islands, which is where most people like to do an asset protection trust. Yeah, and I mean, we're virtual. You know, all of our advisors operate over Zoom most of the time. We do have physical location here in Dallas for people that want to come meet with us. But yeah, we could absolutely do that. We work with Anchorage to hold the assets today, talking to a few other large custodians. There's some that are offshore in other jurisdictions that we hopefully will formalize partnerships with in the near future. Here's the issue. None of this tech is built for interoperability or visibility on accounts at multiple exchanges or not exchanges, but custodians. The one that we use now is Securitize, can do Gemini, Coinbase, and Anchorage, but that's the most diversified one there is. Everybody else has just built their own software for reflecting their assets that are held there. So if you wanted to hold assets at Zodia and BNY Mellon and Hex Trust and Koma Inu and Anchorage, Crypto.com and Kraken and Standard Custody, so that you had a diversified, holding base, and maybe each one of those has different things or partnerships that provide the most value for whatever assets you're holding there. Right now, you would have like 7 different logins, and you wouldn't have an aggregate view of everything. We're working on it. We're building it, but it doesn't exist today. So that's kind of the problem too. Like, again, nobody else is doing what we're doing at Digital Wealth Partners. So yeah, the answer is yes. And we're working on more and more solutions to be able to do it the right way. I'll take one more super chat and then we're going to wrap it up tonight because we are at 2 hours in, and I like to make these digestible for people that want to listen back to them later. We got Kevin Dory. What's up, Kevin? Good to see you, dude. He says, what's up, Jake Benamimit? Just wanted to give you a shout out and appreciate all that you've done for us that have unlearned in the ways of the perpetual monies. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, super excited to be back with you guys. We'll be back again Wednesday. I hope you'll have a wonderful week. If you do need the LLC, again, you can go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50OFF, 50OFFDAGLLC. Get you everything end-to-end for your digital asset holding company to manage your digital assets. That's 50OFFDAGLLC is the code there. And if you want to join the Mastermind, we would love to have you. You can try it out for $2. If you use the code Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, get you the first month for $2 there at beyondbroke.com. And if you already have the LLC and you've already got a large allocation to digital assets, over 100,000 XRP or at least $500,000 in current portfolio value, and you want the wealth management, you want access to lines of credit, you want an advisor, you want to be able to generate returns and yield in the near future on your XRP or your XLM or your Bitcoin or your ETH or your Solana, Matic, Chainlink, Avalanche, or all the other EVM-based tokens that Anchorage can hold, you can just go to digitalwealthpartners.net and go check that out there. So with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful week, a wonderful night, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Till then, God bless.